Hey everyone, it's Andrew again, coming at you guys with another video, Zettelkasten video. Today I want to show you how to convert digital notes into analog notes in your Zettelkasten. So if you guys are unfamiliar with my journey in this, I essentially started my Zettelkasten digitally. This is my first attempt at a Zettelkasten, and here is my bubble graph in Obsidian, as you guys can see. Sure. A lot of other digital Zettelkasten users use something, look at something very similar. Essentially, how I did this was I had everything in one place. So I had the Bible, and that was, bubble graphed out into all sorts of things. I had like different books and authors. So this is the qualifications of an elder. This is what the Old Testament authors really cared about. That's a book. So I had this all in one place. As you can see, it's kind of a spider web of, just a messy spider web is the best way to describe it. That was my first Zettelkasten. And then actually my second Zettelkasten is one that I created more recently, and I try to make it a little bit more branch-like. You can see it's a very baby Zettel. There's like barely any notes in here. But essentially, this other one, I probably spent maybe 6 months working on this, and there's honestly some good stuff in here. But the thing is, how do I, now that I've come to the conclusion that this really is the superior way to do this, this is the better way to actually think and be able to produce writing out of this stuff. This is my preferred method, but I want to put some of this stuff in here. You have a few options. One is you could just leave this, you could just let this be, you could just use this as a reference, dig through here every once in a while. Personally, I want to put some of it here. So basically your other option is putting some of the notes in here, and the other option is putting everything from here into your analog system. I think putting everything would be a little bit extreme unless you have like just 10 notes or something, but essentially how I'm going about this, and this isn't the only way to do this, is essentially digging through all of these notes and kind of treating this as another selection process. So when you're reading a book, you go through a selection process of you're reading with a goal in mind, thinking about what sort of information am I going to select out of this book to then put into my Zettelkasten. Essentially, I'm doing a similar thing here with going through my digital Zettelkasten. I'm basically selecting the things that I know that I want, and I'm turning them into note cards. So I did that here. I went to, so this is my second Zettelkasten where I try to make things a little bit more adherent to basically the limitations of a note box, which now if I were to do it again, I actually know the limitations of a note box better, and I'd probably be able to make a better digital Zettelkasten, but personally I don't really want to go back to this. So I made some basically on the preaching category. So in my Zettelkasten, I do not have a preaching category. And this is just kind of floating around by itself. It's not really organized any more specifically than just preaching. So, sorry, my computer's dying, so I have to do this fast. But essentially, from preaching, this is my index in my digital. I have a jumping off point that says, education can make our language odd. So this is a note that I took from a book, The Christian Ministry, which is right here. But essentially this is a note mentioning that education can make our language sound out of touch with the everyday person. And essentially I took this note and I wrote it on a note card. And I also rephrased things a little bit, made it sound a little bit more natural. But obviously this is from a book. So how do I note from this thing to this thing? How do I make it clear that this is from a specific book, even though I don't have a bib card for this book in my analog Zettelkasten? So essentially there's a few ways to do this. You could actually create a new bib card. If you don't want to use any digital technology at all, you could create a new bib card that basically references this book, and you could just basically link it to that. What I'm choosing to do is I'm choosing to actually use Zotero, which is a reference management tool, open source, lives locally in your computer, or you can sync it if you want. But essentially, it's a way to manage your references. And I was, an absolute Obsidian guru with my plugins and stuff. So I had this linked to Zotero, and you see it's like not working. I can't go to it. Usually you'd be able to click on this bridges and be able to just get linked right to the spot in Zotero, but it's not working, of course. So this is where I would, spend the next 10 minutes trying to figure out how to make this work. Just another reason why digital systems suck. Sorry, don't mean to be strong language there. But, so I have this particular book actually in Zotero. So this is the Christian Ministry. And here is all the information on the book, all the bibliographic information. And essentially what I'm going to do now, and you can see actually I have literature notes, which is what used to call bib notes based on Sankey Aaron's system. Anyways, I could like recreate this as a bib note. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it as it is. Essentially, what we want to do to be able to link this note card is we're going to create a tag on this reference. And if you've watched my other videos, you know my general naming convention for like bib cards is just B dot the author's name, and then I do a number based on like which one it is. If there's multiple books written by the same author, if it's the first entry, I just do 1, 2, 3, following from there. With Zotero, I like to do Z. So I got Z dot, I'm gonna do bridges. Sorry, I'm doing this with one hand. Sorry. Z dot space bridges. I was imagining this being easier for some reason. 1. So there, I got Z dot bridges 1, and that's gonna be my tag. So if I hit enter, it's wanting me to create a new tag. Anyways, there we go. So I got that. So if I were to come up here and search Zotero, and I did Z dot bridges, Z dot bridges, there we are. This is our resource. So that's a way to find it on here. All right, enough of that. So now if I were to try to link here, basically what I would do, pull out my red pen to do my links. I basically copied this note in here and I added that footnote, but I didn't put the reference because I wanted to create this with you guys. So I come here and I would do Z dot bridges 1. And now I do have a page number in here, so if I go back to Obsidian, I want to make sure I get this page number. That's 312 through 313. So sorry, you can tell I'm not doing well here. There we go. Okay, 312 through 313. Got that in there. Now we have some other things too here. So based on how I did this in Obsidian, I have just like this weird thing going on with, I have like 2 notes in front of this note, even though back then I didn't actually understand how notes work, like being in front or behind, and I actually got this flip-flopped. Anyways, it's besides the point. Basically what I was trying to capture here in my digital is a chain of notes. So this is the first note, and then essentially I have, this is the next note, but this is also somehow the next note. If I go into here, you can see I didn't actually write anything here. This is kind of like a placeholder in case I wanted to write something later. But we're going to go here. This is the next one. Jesus preached with simplicity and imagery. So I basically read this, and I thought, you know what, honestly, this is pretty cool. I paraphrased it here in this note, but I decided to actually go back to the book and just copy in the quote that he actually used, just to really preserve that. So here's that quote, copied it in. I just put a dash down here so I can indicate where it came from. We just created this tag so we can actually link this back to Zotero. So I'm just gonna come here and put in that new link. My PC is dying, so we're gonna get off of my PC as soon as I can. This was 310. Okay, great. So we got that figured out. I'm gonna try to go fast here. So my next one was silly sermon illustration should be avoided. I essentially compressed that into the same thing with Jesus preached with simplicity and imagery. I kind of compressed those two. Essentially what I'm doing here is I'm further processing all these notes. I'm basically going through these notes again and reselecting, reprocessing, further refining them through this process. So it's actually really cool. Okay, I just died. LOL. But we don't need it anymore. Screw you. This thing never dies. This thing dies. So, all right. Now we have this, and we need to link it. Bring out my old school bib card here that I created without any thought of what I was doing. For this book, this is before I switched over to digital, but this has my page numbers, so this is going to save us. Silly illustrations should be avoided right there. So that's 314. We know is the page that's on. So the part about those silly sermon illustrations we're going to put in here. So that's Z dot Bridges 1 314. Great. So now essentially we have these three notes that were taken from my digital, further processed, and now they're here in analog form. So we're going to get rid of our laptop. I'm really taking you through the process here because I want to show you how we're doing this. But now essentially we have these notes and they don't really have a place in our Zettelkasten. Typically what we would do here, if this had a lot more notes in it, we'd kind of want to think about where these would go before we create them, but really we're just getting started with this. So we're just creating new categories, creating all sorts of new stuff here. So essentially where I would probably file these under is a preaching category, and the preaching category would fall under a pastoral ministry category, and the pastoral ministry category would fall under practical theology. That's what makes sense in my mind. If something else makes sense in your mind, for sure file it that way. That's what makes the most sense in my mind. So I know 4,000 is my practical theology section. 4,100 is the Christian life. 4,200 is culture, I believe. Culture, yep. And there is no 4,300. So I'm going to create a new category called pastoral ministry, and I'm going to put it in the 4,300 category. Or I'm going to put it as 4,300 in the category. So, put these to the side for a moment. Pull some fresh note cards. Pull out our pen. Doing this one-handedly. I'm trying to write with my left hand there. That was awkward. Okay. So, essentially what we want is we want a pastor. Okay, having a hard time writing here with one hand. I'm gonna have to stop saying that. Pastoral. Oh boy. Okay, looks terrible, but that's fine. This is why I do things ahead of time. But thought I want to take you through this process just so you can just really see it fully broken out here. Okay, now I'm going to do preaching. Okay, pastoral ministry and preaching. Those are going to be our categories, and preaching is where this is going to fall under. So, now, this is great. Kind of have our framework for where this stuff is going. So, I know that pastoral ministry is going to be this is going to be, gosh, the angles, man, right? 4,300. Boom. It's some cinematography right there. Okay, and 4,300 is going to go at the very back of my 4,000s. So, I'm just going to put it there for now. Okay, now we got preaching. this is basically going to be a category within 4300. I could really develop this and make it a 4310 if I wanted to really go into preaching and like dissect it and whatnot. I'm probably not going to do that. I'm just going to go like 4301 just to give it that first place. So, sorry guys, it's hard to write really small things here. Okay, that's my preaching card, and this is going to go behind my pastoral ministry card. Okay, great. And eventually we're going to file these behind it too. So now what we're going to do is we're going to order these. So I honestly think where I want to start with this is just this quote. So this is kind of the jumping off point for these two notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. We just created 4301. This is going to be the first note in that chain. Sorry guys, I'll be right back. Okay, so now we have 4301/1. This is our note on Jesus' simple preaching. And now we got these. So these are going to be basically jumping off points of this. So I'm going to make it go like this because this is what makes the most sense to me. So this is going to be 4301/1. This is going to be 4301/1A. This is going to be 4301/1B. Okay, so now we have 4301/A and 4301/1B. Okay, so that's how we're filing these things. So that means that this /1 is going to go behind this one in here. So now we have 4300, 4301, 4301/1. And then we're going to put 43/1A. That behind that one. B. That behind that one. Then we have that little chain installed in the Zettelkasten. Before we flip it over to put it in there, we need to index this. So this is my index. Looks like we're doing P. I could right now basically create a whole new section for pastoral ministry and preaching. They both happen to both start with P, but because I know those are going to be big categories, but for now I'm just going to put them here, and in the future when I have multiple things in them, I'll probably create their own dedicated card. But right now I'm going to write down the index, just show, pastoral ministry, preaching, where they are. Now I've got pastoral ministry and preaching both entered in there. If I really wanted to, I could make something relate to like imagery, if I really wanted to index this. But when you're just getting started out, just index what you can. You don't want to wear yourself out too much with indexing like everything you possibly can think of. So okay, that's index. That will help us to know where that is later on once this grows. Okay, we're going to flip this over because this is all properly installed. So now when we come through here, you have 4,000, and if we go to 4,300, comes at the end of 4,200, we have pastoral ministry, preaching. Obviously you can fill this up with even more categories. You can even branch down into pastoral ministry if you're looking at it from a big topic. You can put tons of notes between these two and after these, and now you have our little section on preaching that came from our digital Zettelkasten and is referencing a Zotero reference. So that's about it, guys. This is obviously a lot of work if you were to do this for all your notes, so I would just be selective with it. Just choose the notes that are really going to be important to you and take it one day at a time. For me, I'm just doing this little by little, bit by bit. So appreciate your time watching. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks.